Good morning. Welcome to Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. Nice to have you all here with us, and welcome back to the Hankins. Nice to have you all with us today. And do we have any first-time visitors? I don't think so. So, one, and we are pleased today to have Ron Pewter presenting with us today about what makes a good society. Looks like it'll be a good topic, and maybe that varies around the world. Maybe that's a question we'll discuss.
Absolutely. What is good?
What is good? What's the role of government in society? How much should it do? How much should private industry do? And how much should we contribute on our own? Lots of good questions. Okay, our usual announcements first. Zoomers, nice to have you with us. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not speaking. And we are recording this for future playback. And we have a Sunday school summer class party coming up 2 weeks from today on August 31st. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sending around the sign-up list again,
Okay.
and I would like to know how many are. You come, if it's you and your husband, put two, if it's just you, one. I kind of need to know how many chairs.
8 chairs to have. Yes.
Should we bring chairs?
See, they sign up, we have quite a
Anyway.
few.
EYOC. Yes. Bring your own chair. And it's always fun because we have good food and conversation and maybe trivia and games. So it's a fun evening.
Where?
Yes, it's 2 weeks from today, 5 o'clock at the Punings house.
Address on there.
Address is on there and I will email the address too. So 5 to 8 before we all start to fall asleep about 8 o'clock. And then we leave. And so, yes. Come and enjoy. Okay. Good sermon today, did you think? Good message? We never know when you're gonna entertain angels when someone you meet is an angel. Look at them closely and go, so are you from this earth or not?
That film reminded me of Nebraska.
Nebraska, didn't it look like
When Bruce
Nebraska?
Dern was going
Yeah.
across to going to Omaha.
Yes.
Iowa's no different.
Vicky and I called up the movie when we saw Mark say it in his Wednesday email and watched it on demand, and it was really cute and very slow. So it's interesting. You have to just not expect a fast movie and just be ready for a slow ride of a guy on his journey, meeting people along the way. And it was kind of cute, wasn't it?
But I think there's a lesson in the fact that it was a slow movement.
That's right.
Because we are so fast paced that
Fast-paced.
sometimes we don't slow down to see what's going
Is
on.
it streaming? Is it streaming?
It's on demand, I think Netflix or Prime or something like that, just do it, but. I could visualize Mark Feldmeyer on that tractor. With a little ball cap on going across the country. Didn't you see him doing that? I could see,
There's two groups. There's Forrest Gump running with his group behind him,
yeah,
and then the older crowd behind on the lawnmowers.
on the John Deere tractor, yes, but a good message. Wanted to give a plug to that. Okay, Ron Puning, our resident presenter, retired engineer, connoisseur of all things literary. Thank you for this today and take it away, Ron.
Okay, this morning's subject is diverse. I started off deciding I would hit the book Economics and the Good Society by Stiglitz. Stiglitz, of course, is a Pulitzer Prize winner and has impeccable credentials. But the more I read it and the more I thought about it, economics and society is such a broad subject, I better narrow it down. And I narrowed it down to 4 sub areas. And we'll probably find even this morning that that's too much, but we'll make a stab at it. Also, just a week ago, 10 days ago, Robert Wright came out with this new book, Coming Up Short. And if anybody knows, he's got a disease, as does same one that Danny DeVito has.
Oh, really?
And it makes you short in stature. Fortunately, it doesn't impact your brain and your a lot of other abilities. So, but it's an excellent book, and always pushing books like I do. We're going to, number one, put an extra copy I got of Coming Up Short in our library over there. And also 2 more books we're putting in the library. A good example and a bad example. This is the classic book on Joseph Smith. No Man Knows My History. And it shows what a really deceptive, but charismatic person he was.
Looks like Putin.
And it's worth, but it's very intriguing reading. So we'll put that in our little library over there where you can sign out a book on the clipboard. And then to make up for a not so nice leader, this is a book written by Carolyn Goodman. Her son, Andrew, knew Robert Reich. In fact, Robert Reich mentions in his book that Andy helped him out as a kid, kind of protecting him and helping him. So Reich knew Andrew Goodman. Goodman, of course, went to Mississippi with the Freedom Workers in 1964 and was one of the 3 young men viciously killed and buried in the dam outside of Philadelphia, Mississippi, in that terrible tragedy that caught the attention of the whole nation. So this book is also, you can read it in practically one sitting. It's fat print, but it's an example of a really good leader and someone we can really look up to with positive attributes to make a better world and a good society. So we're going to also put this one over in the little mini library over there. Yeah, passing it around would be a good idea. Okay, well, let's get started. I always like to start with a cartoon. Here's one of my favorite summer cartoons by The Far Side. Whoops.
Share. Yeah.
There we go. The fat, bloodthirsty mosquito is saying to his skinny little buddies, head 5 miles west until you come to a river, fly upstream about a mile until you come to the sign, Sunshine Nudist Colony.
That'd be a good society for mosquitoes.
Yeah. All right. Then, of course, we have, again, the 2 books that I've drawn upon, although we've drawn from a myriad of sources today. All right. Here's a cartoon I love. Shows a guy on his obviously fabulous yacht saying to his buddy, can you believe it? Only cost 180 people their Medicaid benefits. And then a quote that's been going around on the Facebook. One doesn't have to operate with great malice to do great harm. The absence of empathy and understanding are sufficient. So a lot of people are going through life like a giant wrecking ball. And they're doing a lot of harm to a lot of people, but they don't feel bad because they don't see it. They're blind to it.
That is the definition of a social.
Yeah. Stiglitz, who's the author of the book we mentioned, Economics and the Good Society, professor of economics at Columbia University, and recipient of the John Bates Clark Medal and a Nobel Prize. He was the former senior vice president and chief economist of the World Bank. Now, that's an important position. And he's written a lot of books. Another one of his excellent books is The Great Divide, Unequal Societies, and What We Can Do About Them. 2 themes that run through Stiglitz's book and Reich's book. Both of them are saying one of the great difficulties we're having now, and one of the reasons for the difficulties in the economic environment, is inequality. And we've got a myriad of handouts this morning, and just about, we'll look at a few of those graphs, but just about every one of them tells us a story. It's just coming at us head on. We are seeing more and more inequality. It's getting worse, and it's consistently gotten going the wrong way. And our nation has some of the worst, maybe the worst of the Western democracies, inequality. And it keeps getting worse.
Meaning the divide between rich and poor.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things you'll see in some of the graphs, we often divide the American populace into 5 quintiles. That's 20% groupings. And then look at the progress or lack thereof of those quintiles. And of course, the graphs you've got today, look at those quintiles and what has and hasn't been happening. So today, if I don't get too much oral diarrhea and talk too much, we're going to try to touch on a little bit on good jobs and housing, especially for the younger generations. Assuring there's a next generation generated internally. That's what I call the baby bust issue. Creating opportunity for those without seed money. In other words, people who go into life, graduate from high school, and don't really have any seed money. They don't have a family business, a farm, rich mommy and daddy, assets, family, property, et cetera. They're going to make it kind of on their own. And then, of course, we'll also look at assisting those with less talents, helping out the people with health issues, the handicapped, the aged, children, et cetera. That's probably way too much to try to cover, but we'll at least touch on it. Next slide. There's a whole gamut of other issues we could touch on. Healthcare, climate change, clean air, water, all those are important parts of a good society. But those will have to wait till another a day and time. We'll be lucky to get through the 4 I mentioned today. Next slide. Okay. One thing we like to see and what America needs more of is good, well thought out, reasoned, facts-based decisions. Particularly in the political world the last 8 years, we've had too many people go up on the podium and offer promises that no one can deliver, or solutions that are terribly well thought out, that are, if you really dig into them, you say, that's so much fluff and that's so much baloney that it couldn't possibly solve the problem. But it sounds good. There's the old saying, we need sound reasoning, not reasons that sound good. And we need more sound reasoning. We need some good, deep thinking in a lot of areas of our society to solve the problems we're having right now. We need good, really deep thought, analysis. One of the credits they gave Dwight Eisenhower, I read a bit about him recently. Eisenhower would form really well collected committees, not a bunch of idiots, but he would pick out some of the best brains, and he wouldn't demand that they conform to his predetermined viewpoint. He would form committees of some real pros and some real experts and have them get together and work on a problem for several weeks and come up with some proposed solutions and ideas instead of calling their best political buddy to make a decision. So we need more on that. We need more deep study of the facts, make sure we have facts, and we don't throw away data from the statistical society when it doesn't tell us what we want. Stop doing pure emotion-driven reactions. Discard changing the subjects. We need empathy in our decision-making, a willingness to sacrifice the long-term good of the group. This is an area that our country is sorely lacking in, quite frankly. You look at some nations that, like China, Japan, particularly some of the Asiatic nations, and a couple of the European nations, some of the Nordic, and they seem to have an incredible ability to collect together, get together, and make a sacrifice for the good of the whole, instead of what's in it for me, and if it's not for me, I don't want anything to do with it. And then, of course, the quote I'm always wearing out by Richard Feynman, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool. So we all need to practice this every day. Don't fool yourself. If something, even if it isn't the answer you want to hear, if the data says that's what's happening, then learn to accept it, not to go into ostrich stick-handed sand denial. What's that?
Oh, the national guard.
Right.
What about the bathroom scales?
Right. Yeah,
Fire that bathroom.
pull the battery and decrease the voltage, see if you get a better reading. I love Mark Twain. No amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. And then there's a cartoon on the big happy bill, which shows the Medicaid patient getting drained of blood and the money infused into tax cuts for the wealthy. Next one. All right, a few of the slides. For those of you that have one of these colored dot charts, quick look at this tells us quite a bit. Number one, looking at Colorado, we've got it pretty good. The Front Range and the mountain I-70 corridor counties and all the way up the Front Range. We're doing darn good. But what this map tells us overall, again, red is bad. Red means your median county income is just, incredibly low, 25,000 or less. And then the deeper and darker green you get, the more wealth and the more median income.
Denver.
But it certainly tells us a story of America, showing us the concentration of wealth in largely the cities. You can immediately pick out the key Douglas County, the key cities of America. By just looking at that, you can see the Atlanta area is where it's at, the DC area, Northern Virginia, on up the Eastern Corridor, Boston, New York. You can see the main metro areas of Texas jump out at you. Powerful areas, the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Chicago. It tells a story. Okay, next slide. This also shows us, and this is data from the Congressional Budget Office, and this shows wealth. Now, this is not income, this is wealth. How much and total assets you have. And you can see how it's traversed and changed since 1990. And we can see that the bottom half of American families just don't have much money. The bottom half, you can see that number. And they're not going anywhere. A little bit, but they're stagnated. If we take the 51st to 90th group, and that's a large group, and they've done reasonably well. They're making at least some progress. But we can see where it's at if you really want to see where the money is going.
10%.
And it's going into the top 10%. But I don't show a graph on there showing how much has gone to the top of the 1%. The top 1% have over half of that light brown area on top. So we can see where this doesn't make for a good society. It simply doesn't. Next chart. Here's another chart we looked at another day, and this again shows those, particularly the two lower quintiles, having very, very little, less than that's just a little over 10%. And even when you add in the middle quintile, you've only got 20% of the wealth. So we won't beat that charge to death, but phenomenal amounts are going into that top 1%, and it's growing faster than the other group. Next one. This one sets up the discussion we'll do on showing why young couples can't afford families. You can see 1975. Let's see, Alice and I bought our first home in Oak Ridge in 1978, 77, late 70s, late 77, yeah. But we got a house there for 42,000.
Oh, wow.
And I think,
You're 400 now.
and I think I was earning a whopping 15K. But still, 15,000 a year compared to a $43,000 house, you're 2.5, something like that. Now, if you look at 2022, that's reasonably updated data. And houses in Denver now are going around 600K, the average home. And we can see that somebody in that middle quartile, or even that fourth quartile, the upper 40%, they're trying to buy a house for $600,000 that is 5 or 6 times their annual income. So we can see, how tough it's got. And that shows where the money's gone, the bar graphs. Next one. Okay, let's take a swipe at a couple politicians. Lies, denial, and excuses. If you're not experiencing here's one of the sayings, if you're not experiencing the American dream, it's probably your fault. That's just not true. Let's just let capitalism do its thing and the problems will fix themselves. This is the opposite of what Stiglitz and Wright are telling us. Now, before you say, Ron, you commie socialist, drop that microphone and get out of here. We have to honestly look and say, hey, things are not going so well with what I will call nearly unbridled capitalism, where you don't bridle the capitalism and control it with some settings and rules, tax codes, and benefits to help. Another way to deny the problem politically, America is hurting right now. And I think the last election, America was saying to a great extent, I'm seeing housing prices too high. I'm seeing groceries too high. I'm seeing everything grow, and my income isn't keeping up. That was a great tenor of the election. And yet, to some extent, a lot of times the politicians will create what I call a distraction. Instead of saying, here's the problem, the inequality, the housing costs going so high, the need for more good jobs, we'll sometimes try to create a distraction. Distractions like, well, transgender athletes are trying to compete with my daughter. Well, yeah, is that a problem? Yeah. In the entire state of Colorado, how many transgender athletes do we have that are trying to get into the other gender sports? I don't think even maybe 3 or 4. So that's a distraction. You hear other arguments like those people, whoever those people are lazy and worthless. But most of us know if you really get out in the streets and meet some of these immigrants and some people, particularly kids caught in poverty, it's just not true. Immigrants are destroying us. They're trying to take away my guns. Woke and equal rights are discriminating against WASP. The LGBTQ folks are intrinsically evil. They're destroying society. So these are what I call the distractions. They're trying to destroy my religion and persecute me. So yeah, anything but to deal with these hard issues that we need some facts.
Wall Street Journal called it whataboutism.
What about it?
What
What
aboutism?
about that? What about that?
Yeah, but what about?
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
Look over here. Don't look over here.
Yeah.
Look at all this stuff over here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all about.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
Okay, next slide. 14. I've shown this one before. You've all heard the Marie Antoinette quote. But the peasants are starving. They don't have any bread. Well, let them eat cake, And then I've mentioned this one in a recent lesson. That's the Boys Town card from the 1930 motto, which shows a young man going into Boys Town, Nebraska, the Catholic charity that has been so successful. And the song and the phrase, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. And the Hollies did a song on it, for those that remember some of the 60s music. But maybe we've changed it. Instead of he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Or a lot of Americans are saying he's too heavy and he ain't my brother. In other words, an unwillingness to reach down and help the people in need. It's kind of an every man for himself or every woman for themselves. The quote from Ebenezer Scrooge, if they die, they'll just decrease the surplus population. And then the quote, only socialists and commies talk like that. So next slide. Okay. A quick note, we of course mentioned housing, and we could spend the whole lesson on housing today. But particularly housing affordability and where the jobs are. Sometimes we try to say, well, if housing is too expensive in Denver, just go somewhere else. But you can do that to some degree. You can move to maybe the outskirts of Parker. You can't even get cheap housing and really affordable stuff in Parker anymore. But you can't just say, I'm going to move out to a cornfield in Iowa. You got to have a job. You can't just move anywhere where there's cheap housing. You got to have housing where the jobs are. Also, and I'm looking at this from a standpoint of young people. We have let's see, my oldest granddaughter is 24, and she's had 2 years at a aerospace firm as a software engineer in Colorado Springs. She's doing well, but still the burden kids, I shouldn't call them kids, young adults are facing right now to marry, form families, and buy a house.
Living at home.
Yeah, are staggeringly difficult. And of course, we have the increased volatility and insecurity of jobs. Steve brought in the Wall Street Journal weekend edition here, and it's got a key article in there looking at the struggles a lot of new grads are facing. The article's defined America's defining mobility is stalling. And I've just glimpsed at it, but the article basically talks about the struggle Americans are having to even move to try to get to where the jobs are. The cost of moving is difficult. Mobility is constrained by housing limits, funds to move. It takes money to move a household. Restraint on maybe caring for your aged parents if you're in a given area. Maybe you have a disabled sibling or partner. Visitation rights for children of divorce. What do you do with a guy that's divorced and maybe his ex-wife and 2 children live here in Denver? Does he take a job in Boston? Yeah, okay, he can do that, but it really does creates heartache on relationships, love of friends, family, and homeland. Okay, next one. And then, of course, we mentioned the cultural war distractions. Next slide. Okay, we touched on housing and we didn't solve it. We're now going to mention one called the baby bust. And to replace, if we didn't have immigration, it would take, I think it takes an average of 2.2 children per female of age in the United States to have children just to replace your population. For the last 20 years, we've been running 1.8, and it's now down to 1.7. So we're running way short. And people are asking, well, why is it happening? And there's, of course, a picture from a classic TV show. Who can name that one? The Waltons. Yeah. But the days of the big family out, particularly in a rural area with 6 children or whatever, and grandpa and grandma living in with them, those days are sort of long gone, if they ever were, quite like the fictitious family. But you really now need to start a family. You almost need a 2-income family, unless somebody's got a phenomenal job. Childcare costs are out of sight, from what I'm hearing. There's very little multi-generational help to help raise and nurture children. We've got dependable birth control, and we certainly have a focus on self-actualization in the good life. So there isn't as much incentive to have what I call the late 50s model of a wife, a husband, one of them works, and 4 children. Those days are quickly faded away. And then, of course, there's a lack of men who want marriage and commitment to a family. I'm hearing more and more that good guys are hard to find.
Well, and
And it's just not men.
no, it's not men, the women, there's a big facet of women now that are not wanting, they're choosing not to marry.
Mhm.
Cause they can go ahead and be self-independent and even have families
Mhm.
on their own, you know, so it's not just men anymore, it's women that are saying, not interested in.
Okay. All right, next slide. I think we've got the, see if we've got the data, yeah. So what are the solutions to this? There's a barefoot pregnant and in the kitchen. The nation must choose some mix of, we gotta come up with some kind of a approach. We either need to get an internal birth rate increase among the more stable and educated parents. In other words, you not only want to have some children for the next generation, but you really want them to come from stable parents that have incomes, are better citizens, well-educated. That's where the really good crop's gonna come from. And I'm not making fun of people that are, poor, but you really don't want a poor welfare mom having 9 children, You want the families that have the really strong family roots, be bringing the kids in. You certainly can't ban birth control. And they've tried in nations around the world to tackle this problem. Now, the Nordic countries are giving generous time off and even cash allowances to parents, and that's helped some. But most of the efforts in most of the countries to stimulate an internal baby boom are not working very well. And then we, of course, have to ask the economic consequences of a decreasing population. Go ahead, Larry.
What has happened in China after they dropped the one child thing?
yeah.
They've gone to 2 and 3. But even the Chinese have come up fast in terms of their economic growth, and they don't have a baby boom going on.
Yeah, they're losing population.
Yeah, they're starting,
They're losing.
yeah.
China also.
And that brings up the argument, can you sustain a country with a dipping population? The answer is yes, but it's very difficult. You end up with an incredibly imbalanced demographic where Social Security and care for the aged becomes incredibly difficult. And the economic growth rate of the country and unquestionably slows dramatically. Okay, so we got to figure out how to handle the baby bust. Next one. Okay. We also wanted, next topic is how to jumpstart those particularly youngsters, young families that are starting out who don't start on second or third base. When I say that, where they don't have parents that have bequeathed to them
Well,
$250,000 to buy their first house. Don't have a business to give to them, don't have a farm to give to them. Also, children, youth, seniors, disabled, those things. So what do we do to help those that don't have a lot of seed money to start out? We are seeing right now that a lot of people are having trouble moving up mobility wise, the younger generation. They don't have this unless they get the family undergirding of a good bit of seed money, help, money for college, maybe money for the first house, some other financial assistance. They're having a rough go of it.
Well, I think that's part of it. These kids are starting out with such college debt. Who wants to start having a family? You gotta pay off your debt before you can think about getting a house and a family. That postpones everything, and their most fertile years are by the wayside. And then even if they want a family, sometimes it's not as easy as that by the time they're ready.
Yeah, I knew one girl that went to CSU for a couple of years. got married. She, the couple was saddled immediately with about 35,000 in debt. And that's a huge hurdle to get over.
Not even big though. My
I'm
kids-
sorry?
My kids had $85,000.
Okay.
when they got married.
Yeah, so the nation
They
needs.
didn't have any assets at all,
Wow.
nothing.
So the nation needs to figure out some solutions.
Ron.
Yeah.
Bill has a comment.
Go ahead.
This is obvious, but I said another obvious thing. In terms of debt.
Louder, Bill.
Okay, I'll try to be louder. In terms of debt. A lot of things that we think we have to have. Are based upon, industries that are continually making this stuff. Like new cars. I mean, if you look at whatever TV you watch, I only watch Jeopardy. But I was shocked to hear when Trump started this tariff thing, that a dealer in Michigan said, oh, I had this guy all set at selling him a Ram truck for $85,000. Now I'm gonna have to sell it to him for $100,000. Now, that's an extreme example, but the thing with all the continued, I mean, we are a consumer society, but it's continually pounded in and it's something that I think we at least could think about. Is, do I really have to have all these baubles because they don't make you happy? I mean, to have a nice car, good transportation makes you happy, to have a decent cell phone, et cetera, but the messages are continually, buy, and it's one of the things that our economy's fixed.
Always has been.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Then we have a slide, retirement fantasy. This is some articles that have just shown up. Matt Schultz, LendingTree's chief financial analyst, said, and this was a quote just in the last couple of weeks. Most aren't fortunate enough to have a 7-figure nest egg or a pension to lean on. Retirees are often juggling limited income, rising debt, and retirement accounts dangerously low in their balances. And there's trouble ahead. There's trouble already. There's undoubtedly people in this class that are facing significant struggles in terms of facing retirement. But they did a poll and found that 41% of people recognize they would not be able to support the retirement lifestyle they envisioned. So things have gotten, so retirement fantasy. How many here have a pension from a corporation or a company? Yeah,
Or government.
yeah,
But how many of our kids have it?
yeah,
None.
they're gone.
Yeah.
And strip away those retirement funds and things are gonna get a whole lot more difficult.
I think that a lot of people, I think a lot of young people know at a pretty reasonably young age. Whether they are gonna have it handed to them in some form or not. And my parents were labor workers with no pensions. And at retirement lived on Social Security. And we were fortunate that when they both passed away, that they didn't leave debt. But, there's a lot of times when young people go into life, at adulthood, that have nothing, except for what they've built, or they have debt that was even incurred from the former generation, but I think a lot of people know pretty early on, it's not gonna be made in shape for me, so I either have to follow a labor working job that at least gives me comfortable living at some level, but not, it's not gonna be handed to me. So I wonder how that affects the attitude of young people.
Sharon.
Good point.
The differences in my growing up of becoming a mature adult. Corporations used to help you out financially with insurance, medical insurance. That all went by the wayside probably 20, 30 years ago. It has made such a big difference because my kids talk about paying $700 a month for insurance, and I'm thinking, whoa, you know, stuff like that. So these insurance companies are part of this problem too, because they're wealthy. You know, so
What that perk went away, when the retirement went away.
yeah, all the benefits that
Yeah.
they took those away, and I don't know who took them away, but they're gone.
Earnings per share took them away. And
Well, our insurance went up $1,000 in the last. Just
It's
homeowners
amazing.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that, it is like cars.
Who's getting all this money? I don't think it's the doctors. They don't fund their wealth.
Ron,
Go ahead.
when I was in China and I worked with and met several educators. How they work their family situation is that parents and grandparents and kids, they all live together.
Yeah.
And they lived in these real high buildings, they showed me. And they were small, but they all lived together, they have their walks and they all cook together and. I mean, I don't know if that's really happening here in the United States where grandparents and parents and children are all living together. I know, I don't know.
Some are wondering whether the American dream of everybody, every young family having their own house very quickly is gonna have to go away. It's already starting to go away to some degree. Okay, I want to just pop another slide or two in and then we'll go straight to more discussion. Next one. There's that song by Rich Girl by Hall and Oates. Save money, but it won't get you too far. Anybody hear that
Yeah.
song?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, next one. There's another book by Robert Reich, Raw Capitalism Won't Fix the Issues. And then there's again Reich's book that I highly recommend. And again, you can borrow it and check it out here if you want to read it. Next slide, 25. Yeah, there's a book. And then 26. Slide. This, you might say, well, this is too socialist. But John Hinkle said, what's striking about capitalist civilization is no real direction. There's no vision for social progress, no commitment to improving human welfare or ecology. All we get is the chaos of profit-oriented production. And then let's jump to our final. Yeah. I should probably get criticized for this, but as I get older now and I study the data, I'm thinking that we're gonna have to, I think, solve the problem, knuckle down and number one, significantly increase the tax rate on the very wealthy and the large corporations. If you just look at that graph and how much wealth is accumulated into the hands of a few, we're going to have to do some serious hard-hitting taxing on the group that's got all the piles of money. There's going to have to be some transfer payments. Now, a lot of people get mad. A lot of people get really mad, particularly in middle-class America, will say, I don't want my money going to some poor black family in Memphis, Tennessee.
Well,
But what does Jesus say?
Yeah, they don't really want to share and they don't really, but when you dig into it, you start to meet these people, you find out that a high percentage of them are kids. A high percentage of them are people that have serious disabilities, partial blindness, all kinds of maladies and misfortunes. Bad, raised in the worst part of town with no education, no help. We're going to have to knuckle down and be willing to give some of our surplus to those most in need, like that, Boys Town, yeah, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. We're gonna have to accept a little more brotherhood with our, with the have-nots, particularly the people that are really doing well, living high off the hog with double ice cream sundaes are gonna have to cut back some. And we're gonna have to be patriotic and to say that patriotism means a willingness to share and give and help some others. So let's keep it going. What are some thoughts? We've turned up a lot of subjects here. Yeah, start, Eric.
I noticed you passed over a slide that said in Scandinavian countries, if anyone's been to Denmark or Norway, they pay high taxes, but they consistently come in the top 5 happiest places in the world, and it's because they subsidize farmers, they subsidize education, they subsidize families to have children. There are a lot of subsidies, but they're very happy with what they're paying. And then in places like Finland, they don't flaunt it, even the wealthy. They drive older cars, they live in homes that are beneath their income level. It really is a different mindset. I don't know how we get there, but I think that's where we ought to be headed.
Okay. Several other,
I
think,
was just gonna say that when you
loud as you can.
control the media, and that's where the answers are. When the media's saying the opposite view of what you're saying, and saying, you know, you guys are gonna lose all your money, and we don't get rid of all these social programs. They're getting rid of things like PBS and public radio. That's the reason they're getting rid of us, because they want to control the media that says what they want people to hear. So I don't see it getting any better. I hate to be a negativist, but
Okay.
There
Behind
are
Jim and then
handheld
Jim.
Microphones in the back. Steve Horse, would you take that microphone and hand it forward to the folks with their hands up? Thank you.
Hi, Bruce Glenn here. I agree with everything that's been said, but except the point about declining birth rate. It seems to me that that's good because of the environment and climate change and all of that. That's a concern.
Okay, yeah, Japan's got a sharply declining birth rate. And a nation can go forward, and the nation, we'd still be a very powerful country if our population dropped from, we're what now? 325 billion down. We could drop 50 million and still do well. It would be a painful transition though, because so many of us, particularly baby boomers,
Yep.
it would be a painful transition over a couple decades. Right now, you can look at the data and say, yeah, we're in a heap of hurt without them.
Yeah.
We just had our house painted on the outside and the inside, Mason and I did, and guess who did it? They're wonderful, wonderful Mexican families. As a matter of fact, we're giving them a whole bunch of, they're so happy. We're giving them a sofa, an old sofa that we have, and they're coming today to get it, as a matter of fact. And they are so wonderful. They're just such wonderful people. They come with their children and they're taking things to their mothers, and they're great people.
Amen.
Just great.
Ann has the microphone and a comment.
I think we actually need a third political party called Reality.
Ann, would you pass the microphone to Jim?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to mitigate anything that has been said because I agree with the intent of all of it. But there's an aspect of this type of discussion that I think is almost always omitted. And that is the advances in technology, advances in the product and everything else that has gone on. I went into the mortgage business in 1963 and I retired about 2000, somewhere around there. And in 1963, the average house that we were making a loan on was 950 square feet for a 2-bedroom house, and about not more than 1,200 square feet for a 3-bedroom house. And when I retired, it was over 2,000 square feet. So we're talking about these kind of things. When I went into, when we were building houses in the areas, this was a prairie back in those days. But down in some of the subdivisions in Denver, most of them did not have any kind of soils tests to make sure that the foundations were appropriate for what they are setting on. The product that they were turning out was so vastly inferior to the product that is being put on the market now that there's hardly any comparison. The product, the fasteners that they use just to put the boards together these days is so unbelievably better than it used to be. The roofing material, the windows, I mean, we were all doing single glazed windows and now they're almost the same. That triple glazed windows are almost the standard. And then you can go on almost and infinitum, what is that word? Anyway, the products that we are getting are so superior, and that's one of the reasons why the costs have increased.
Good point. Right.
Gene.
The way society skews the reimbursement for your job. We've got athletes out here making hundreds of millions of dollars to play a game, and we have laborers that are working 1,000 times harder and not getting enough to buy a meal this morning. So as society values this over this, turn around, we're still gonna have that little bit at the top that has all the money.
May I offer an Alka-Seltzer? And another book? Sorry.
Pass the microphone forward, please.
You don't think I can talk loud enough?
No need.
Alka-Seltzer, maybe some relief to this. I had the privilege this week of attending a book signing, Sam Harris, Reclaiming Democracy.
Oh.
It's about transformational advocacy. In the book, in the presentation, they had some statistics and some examples for ordinary people like Alvin, transformational advocacy, and a group that is a network throughout the United States. And I would encourage everybody to check it out, called results.org. These are groups that have been put together, networking, that have direct contact. The headquarters is back in Washington. Personally, with legislatures, both Republicans, independents, and Democrats. And the impressive thing that made me feel better, made me feel a little bit warm inside, is how, and it doesn't get the press, it doesn't get the media attention, how they are influencing both independents, Republicans, and Democrats on certain pieces of legislation we don't hear about on the media, but where there is this bipartisanship taking place. It really made me hopeful, thank you, hopeful. And there's all this darkness. Everything you say is so true, Ron. But there are things happening. And so I would encourage, if you're interested about transformational advocacy and getting involved in all the topics, housing, poverty, climate, you go down technology, throughout the United States, where you can get involved and have personal contact. These networks have personal contact with legislators. Results.org. Just something here to at least indicate there's some good things also going on right now. We need to know about, or we need to know about.
Okay. Carol, did you have a comment also?
I just wanted to say that Robert Reich
was right, the estimation of the middle class. And that has to do with the distribution of wealth. the distribution of wealth is a very, very big, poor, concept for the average middle class person. When I was younger, both my parents worked all the time. And that was quite a while ago. And that they pulled themselves, yes, out of almost a poverty background, but they worked their lives away. And so when you look at the distribution of wealth, they had to do that to have a house, a 900 square foot house. But when you look at the distribution, there is on 1% power elite. People have a lot of power who are still making a ton of money. And that is not being, and we are looking at people who might lose Medicare, Social Security, et cetera, and what will happen there. Those people will stay where they are or be in a worse situation. So, and in the Scandinavian countries, you're right. They tax people, but those who can afford to pay the taxes pay them. And so it's the common good that is, is being valued, and it's not exploiting others for your pocketbook. And I see a lot of that.
We have family who live in Spurling, Colorado, on I-76. And we see on our way there, many homes and condominiums and apartments being built on the way to Spurling, because people can then commute into Denver either on 76 or they can take E470 if they work south. And so that is a way to, I think, provide more affordable housing in suburban areas.
Good point.
We've got about 3 minutes left. Ron, do you think we're gonna lose our good society here that's the envy of the world? So far, does the author say anything about that?
Well, I'm not done with Robert's book yet. I just started it. It's only been out for a week. But there's hope, but we're gonna have to knuckle down. Our competitors, China, Russia, are more willing to focus, sacrifice for the common good. We're gonna have to give up some of our what's in it for me and share more and not be so tight-fisted about particularly the young folk. Giving to those in need, taking care of the sick, the elderly, the young. There's hope,
There's hope.
but we need to get at it.
It's amazing with how many problems we've got, big problems, that we still are the envy of the world and people want to come here. It's just seems dangerous and tenuous.
The problem is getting involved and making the effort to get involved rather than just being passive and benign to what's occurring. To not be involved is to be a part of the problem.
Good point. Last couple minutes, anybody, Jim?
We'll fill over here and
I guess I'm gonna have to disagree with you. We're not the envy of the world. We are not the envy of the world. There are lots of people who still want to.
Hey, Bill, repeat that.
Well, we have been, yeah.
Okay, if we ever were, the US is not the envy of the world. Most of these countries, like you mentioned, the Nordic countries or Germany or things like that, Canada, they think the US is a joke. They see what a evil, materialistic, unfair society we are. We are not the envy of the world.
Okay.
The people coming here are people that are at a lower level than if maybe if you live in Mexico or Central America or I mean, China, there's dozens, tons of people who want to get it. Nobody's moving to China. Well, we are not the envy of the world in my opinion.
Okay, we have been before, but
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Peter, anthropological comments on all this.
Well, you're nice to ask. This has been a terrific presentation. Thanks so much, Ron, as always. Only to say that anthropologists, like other good folks, are concerned with these same issues, and we're privileged to work with marginal people, marginalized people impoverished people, people cross-culturally, diverse people. And those are all the people we have to worry about continuously. This excellent presentation reminds us of what we need to do. One of the things that's been most interesting, no surprise, it builds on what Ron said. The anthropologist recently has been the issue of inequality, just the general issue of inequality, wealth-wise and social capital-wise.
Very good. All right.
Anything else, Ron?
No, I think we've, we could go for weeks on this subject. There's so many facets of it. But we need to think.
Yes,
We need to use facts, thinking with a good dose of empathy.
Not an alternate.
Thank
Real facts. Yes, we're almost done. Yes, go ahead, man.
Quickly, I just finished a book by Mitch Albom. A lot of you may remember him from Tuesdays with Maury.
Yeah.
And the last line of his book was, "I am in love with hope."
Oh.
Love with hope.
It was wonderful.
Very good.
Thank you.
He's a good writer. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Okay, next week, Christine Little is going to present on the history of immigration in America. So we'll get into the immigration issue next week. Come back and join us. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Ron, yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. It's great.
Sure.
Oh, yes.